Hello everybody, welcome to Law Hero. My name is Jen. I'm a solicitor if you didn't know that, and I make videos, the purpose of which is to inform prospective trainee solicitors, trainees, junior associates, whomever is interested to come to this channel and learn a bit more about the legal industry. It's also somewhere where we can just ponder the whole thing. I found myself asking lots of questions in the last few weeks, like how are partnerships formed? You know, why are certain law firms in Ireland, and like how much is the legal marketplace worth in Ireland? All of these kind of questions which people don't really know the answers to. The whole thing, there's nobody who's really an expert in this. I would say the one person who is an expert in this is probably Ken Murphy, the Director General of the Law Society, because he's the one who has an overview of the whole legal market. But from desk research, you can actually find out a lot. And I'm here today to summarize it to you so that you'll have a little bit more information when you're going for a job in a law firm in Ireland, or indeed the public sector, private sector, in-house. First port of call was to find out what the top 20 biggest law firms were in Ireland, and this is done by practicing solicitor numbers. So just in case you don't know, in order to be a practicing solicitor you have to pay a fee to the Law Society and you get a practicing cert, and this fee has to be paid yearly. So just because you qualify as a solicitor doesn't mean you're a practicing solicitor. You need to pay this fee yearly to be considered in this table. So the top 20 are set out here, and this usually, the top two usually goes between Goodbody's and Cox's. It's neck and neck year on year, and they both have roughly 300 solicitors as of 2019. We obviously don't have the 2020 figures yet. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, there are some law firms who have bought, in effect, practicing certs for their lawyers that are London based as a Brexit contingency, and that also plays a role in our top 20 law firms in Ireland, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have any presence here on the ground. Is the impact that COVID-19 has had on it since March/February of this year. Some firms have cut their bonuses to their junior associates, and also economic activity has decreased, certainly from Q3. Apparently Q1 and 2 weren't too bad, and that meant that partners at the end of June, when Q2 payouts were being made, were not affected. However, associate bonuses come at the end of the year, and those obviously will be affected. So the market size of the Irish legal services industry, and I call it legal services because legal services incorporates a whole lot more than just giving legal advice. There's lots of value added stuff in there, like, you know, filing in court or in any of the like property registration office, the CRO, management of companies, secretarial services, custody administration, all that kind of stuff. That would all come within the realm of legal services. And in Ireland we have a market size which is 3 billion euros. We have approximately 5,863 businesses, and we're told that there's roughly 15,000 people in employment. Competition between the law firms, especially as US law firms come into Dublin, and also as technology increases, some people are not going to law firms for advice. They're going online and doing their own research, or they're generating their own contracts, for example, online. And a lot of that online services is augmented by AI, or the application of machine learning through computers, which a lot of the time is extremely accurate and is not to be sniffed at. I've seen it myself in operation, and it very much works. New entrants, for example, Field Fisher Ireland, who came into Ireland by way of merging with McDougall Purcell. Interestingly, McDougall Purcell advises the Law Society, just in case you didn't know that. We also have DLA Piper, and they have been trying to get into Ireland for years. They finally got in. We have also Pinsent Masons, as well as Clark Hill and Clyde and Co. are also international firms to come in. Down through some of the law firms in Ireland and who they're kind of targeting and what they are. So obviously we have, by turnover, the big three. Now some people are saying there's a big five, but I'm just going to concentrate on the big three, which are Cox's, Goodbody's and Matheson. They're the three biggest firms in Ireland by numbers and turnover. Well, I suppose you'd add in McCann's there on turnover. Michael Jackson is the managing partner of Matheson, and you know, so what I've done is I've gone through every single firm and I'm trying to pick out what exactly is their USP, because that's what trainees really seem to have a problem with, is pinpointing down why that firm is special. Like for example, I just said there, Field Fisher is an advisor to the Law Society as regards regulation. You have Le Mans, who are a paperless office and have an ISO standard for that and are very into legal tech. Okay, so what about Matheson? Matheson have such a broad practice. They also have a very international focus. So when asked about their approach, the managing partner said clients are looking for legal technology in relation to large deals, enhanced legal efficiency and bespoke new digital products in the delivery of legal solutions. And Matheson have been actually quite active in this legal tech space. They've hired people to look at how to make things more efficient for their clients. So that would be one big plus that they have. I mean, their practice is extremely broad, and they are quite old law firm in Dublin. That's not to say that the other law firms are doing that as well. It's just, I'm just calling out when the managing partners speak about it. For example, Alan Murphy, managing partner of Evershed Sutherland, and that was also a merger which occurred, it used to be just Evershed, has said we use AI products that can read through thousands of documents, which will have a positive effect on charge out rates for our clients. So these are these machine learning AI legal tech software which I've been telling you about. They are certainly being used by law firms, especially in the due diligence process and also for discovery, where they can go through thousands of documents once they're taught what to find, and they become more sophisticated the more they learn. Another thing you need to consider is you know, if it's for example like Pinsent Masons, who are a new law firm in Dublin, but they are made up of people who have come from the domestic law firms, and you read something like from Gail Bowen, who is the managing partner of Pinsent Masons, and she says our lawyers are hungry for work. That is a cultural approach they've adopted in Dublin. And you know, if you were going to an interview there, you would need to try and marry, you know, your approach with their approach, for example. Whereas you would imagine, like, if you were a Matheson or an A&L Goodbody or a Cox's, you wouldn't necessarily say we're hungry for business because you're not new in the market. So it's just like simple things like that to be aware of. So Maples and Calder are part of the Maples group, because Maples are actually very much involved with funds and fiduciary services for those funds, because they have offshore locations, and a lot of that is done from Dublin. So for example, you would need to understand that is, you know, their business model is centered around that. Maples do a lot of financial services stuff, which is a bit like Walkers, for example. Walkers are very financial services based and also aviation based. And actually, when I was reading about Walkers, the managing partner, Gary Ferguson, said something very, actually to me, he actually says quite a lot. There's a lot we can pick up on. They said, for example, that because of the lack of flying during COVID-19, that there isn't much of a market for a secondary market for planes. See, what you have to understand is that through different cycles, so let's say from growth to recession, you'll have development, and then you'll have, you know, liquidation and selling of assets. And that suits law firms very well because they can just move with the times. But for example, if you're a law firm overexposed to aviation and there's no secondary market for selling repossessed aircraft like Walkers have, you'll have to diversify quite quickly, because for something like a pandemic, the market's kind of stagnant. So even if airlines are going into liquidation, that business has dried up as well. So it's just important to keep an eye on that kind of thing. Obviously, I have to mention Arthur Cox. We have Jeff Moore, who's a managing partner there, and he has spoke of the digital transformation strategy that's going on in Cox's as well, and it's going on in Goodbody's as well. It's everywhere. For example, the managing partner of A&L Goodbody, Julian Yar, said that the legal profession is going through a massive shift, and today's lawyers need to be able to adapt and adjust to rapid changing environment. We see technology as being a material change for the future. So every single managing partner in Dublin is indicating that technology is going to be the driver for the future. It very much seems that the attitude of managing partners in Dublin is that AI and technology will augment the skills of lawyers rather than replace it. But that's up to you, what you think about that. You are hiring new trainees, you want to see some kind of evidence of innovation. You want to see their ability to understand efficiencies and how to reduce time it takes to turn around work. The other thing I would advise people as well is to know what areas the firm you are applying to operates in. You know, with your big law firms, they'll very much have very broad practice areas, but you can also have a big law firm which is quite niche, as I said, like for example Walkers and Maples would be very much financial services. The same kind of would go for Dillon Eustace, where you know, they would be quite involved with like property, banking, and funds and kind of finance generally. Like Lavelle's, if you heard of Lavelle's, they'd be very much kind of like like SME insolvency work. Beecham's would have a broad enough practice actually. They'd have banking, commercial, property, corporate. They'd have litigation as well. Ronan Daly Germ is, well, it's now very kind of nationally. It's in Galway, Cork and Dublin. They'd be a very good example of kind of like a firm who's growing rapidly. They also have a very broad practice. The managing partner there is Richard Martin. He's also said some very interesting things, like that they've also made significant investment in smart technology. All law firms are hot on diversity and inclusion, so make sure you understand their policies around that. Sorry, I already mentioned Philip Lee, and they're a very interesting firm. They actually advised in the Shrims. They advised the DPC on the Shrims too, which is extremely interesting, I think. You can check for information is the Legal 500, which is where law firms put in you know, a description of what they do and what their clients have said about them, and then they're ranked by the Legal 500 panel based on kind of their industry knowledge and what they've heard. It's kind of, you know, a way for clients to figure out what lawyers to go to. It's really, really important for law firms, and they spend a lot of time preparing their Legal 500 applications.